What exactly happened to the Spurs? They lost the game, and they lost their composure with it. But the most talked about moment came after the final buzzer. When the final buzzer sounded, only Mitch Johnson and the coaching staff, along with Luke Cornett and Harrison Barnes, made a point to congratulate the newly crowned Knicks. Wemby and the other young players walked straight back to the locker room. They left without acknowledging their opponents. Jeremy Sohan even followed them all the way into the player tunnel, but still never got a hug. That scene quickly became one of the biggest talking points after the game. During the post-game interview, a visibly frustrated Wemby said this to the reporters in the room.
See y'all. Never.
MSG analyst Alan Hahn said they did not look gracious enough. Wembanyama walked straight off the court after the game and did not shake hands with the opponent who had beaten him for the championship and taught him what it takes to win. When Wemby wins a championship of his own in the future, he should remember and thank Brunson for the lesson he gave him in this series. Draymond Green also reacted on social media. Wow, they didn't even shake hands. For Draymond, the message was clear. Losing is understandable, but walking off without basic sportsmanship is not what a finals team should look like. The Knicks are not some public enemy. They deserve every bit of respect. Throughout the entire finals, the Knicks didn't exactly get a friendly whistle. You could even say they were the team dealing with the tougher calls. In the third quarter of Game 5, several questionable no calls left everyone stunned. On one defensive possession, Wembanyama stepped into Brunson's landing space. With the league cracking down hard on that kind of play this season, it should have been called immediately, and could have triggered a flagrant review. But the officials looked the other way. Right after that, Harper caught Bridges across the face. Again, the whistle stayed silent. Those two missed calls could have become a turning point for the Spurs, but the resilient Knicks absorbed the pressure, completed the comeback, and ended the series right there. Some people felt that from the moment Wembanyama stepped into Brunson's landing space, the finals had already tilted for good. Even if the Spurs had survived that game, the league could have reviewed the play afterward. With Wemby's flagrant foul situation, a suspension could have come into play before Game 6. Reckless plays eventually come with a price. This time, the Knicks simply ended the series early and made that scenario irrelevant. In truth, what the Spurs lost was not just a game. They lost their composure and perspective. In Game 4 of the finals, they once led by 29 points. Then the Knicks completed a stunning comeback. After the game, Wembanyama said, "We didn't lose to anyone. We lost to ourselves." Castle said something similar. After hearing that, many people already had their answer. This team still had not figured out where they actually lost the series. Admitting the strength of your opponent and facing the gap honestly is the first step toward growth. The Spurs failed to do that throughout the entire series. They did lead for long stretches, but the final series score was a cold, brutal 4-1. Nobody can change that. They were too eager to finish the Knicks off. Every game, they played with impatience and urgency, but the Knicks turned out to be the kind of opponent that gets tougher the longer you fight it. The composure they had built through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs completely evaporated under all the praise surrounding them before the finals. The fans believed in them, the media believed in them, and they believed in themselves too. Maybe too much. They were even a little arrogant. The Knicks kept punching back again and again, yet they still refused to admit how strong the Knicks were. They simply blamed their losses on their own mistakes. Wemby's performance also exposed many problems. He often drifted around the perimeter and settled for threes too often. After making a few, he kept settling for long-range shots. That repeatedly wasted offensive possessions for the team. At the same time, he still does not know how to manage his stamina properly. He always wants to break the game open in one sudden burst. That is why his legs faded late in games. Gradually, he lost his rhythm on the floor. On a stage as bright as the NBA Finals, it is understandable for young players to become impatient and overexcited, but that is never an excuse to ignore your opponent or refuse to face reality. This team's growing pains were also reflected in the coaching staff. As head coach, Mitch Johnson handled the loss with class. He knew how difficult it was for the Knicks to get to this point, but he did not instill that same mindset in his players. As a head coach, he is still too young. This was also his first playoff run and his first NBA Finals. And when it comes to losing to an opponent, Anthony Edwards showed what top-level sportsmanship can look like from a young star. In Game 6 of the 2026 Western Conference semifinals, the Timberwolves were crushed by the Spurs, 139-109. They lost by a full 30 points. With 8 minutes left in the game, Chris Finch emptied the bench, and right then, Ant stood up from the bench. He walked straight over to the Spurs. From the coaching staff to the players, he hugged and congratulated them one by one. After the game, when reporters asked why he did it, Ant said, "The game was already decided. I knew I wasn't going back in. I just wanted to give them the respect they deserved. Hats off to them. They were the better team." Dirk Nowitzki said he had been part of the NBA for 20 years and had never seen anything like that. Udonis Haslem criticized him, saying it looked like weakness from a leader. Ant stood by the gesture with one simple idea: respecting your opponent has nothing to do with weakness. In 2012, the Young Thunder trio reached the NBA Finals for the first time and were beaten by the Heat in 5 games. And in the closing moments of Game 5, head coach Scott Brooks said something to his players that remains a classic to this day. He told his players there was no reason to hang their heads, because they had fought all season and still had work to do this summer. Most importantly, he reminded them to respect the champions, shake their hands, and give them credit, because no matter how much it hurt, they had been beaten fair and square. He did not blame anyone. Instead, he taught that young group about respect and unity. And the final line, when he put the blame on himself, moved everyone to tears. He took all the responsibility onto himself. He let that young group keep their heads up and keep walking forward. Unfortunately, that became the final game of the Thunder trio. But Brooks' words stayed with them, and they carried those words forward. Failure is part of life in the NBA. Nobody gets to win forever. Even the 73-win Warriors did not get the last laugh. Talent and strength never define the true value of a player or a team. What truly determines how high they can rise is their attitude when facing failure. Win with honor, lose with dignity. That is the most precious spirit at the core of competitive sports. For this young Spurs team, their current level is not the end point. What they should be doing now is accepting the result calmly, showing sincere respect to opponents who fought with everything they had, learning from failure, fixing their weaknesses, and using the offseason to sharpen their skills and mature mentally. Accepting failure does not mean giving in to setbacks. It does not mean denying yourself. It is simply a lesson every great player must learn on the road to growth.